Hi, this is David from Ash IT. Today we're going to be looking at Razer's smallest Razer blade available, the Razer Blade Stealth 2020 model. Really wanted to get this model into review because there seems to be a lot of conflicting opinion about what this laptop is and what this laptop is for out on the internet. When you see most people talk about this laptop, the first thing they say is, oh no, don't buy that, buy the Asus G14, it's a much better laptop. Well, I think if you're after a pure dedicated gaming laptop, that might be the case. But in this review we're going to be looking at this laptop from a perspective of what it is ideal for, which is a mobile work machine predominantly and a game machine secondary. So let's take a look at this machine now. So this 13.3 inch Ultrabook from Razer is not a dedicated gaming laptop like your Razer Blade 15 and your Razer Blade Pro. This is a laptop that you can take everywhere with you for a bit of work on the go and then a few games once that job is done. It's a very light, compact, tiny little machine. I want to just compare it to the Razer Blade 15 that we've recently reviewed, and you can see how tiny this laptop is. So here is the Razer Blade 15 base model that we recently reviewed, and here is the Razer Blade Stealth. Now I'm going to pop the dimensions up on screen just down below so that you can see the dimensions, but it is a tiny little laptop. Let's put it side by side, and you can see not only is it much smaller in width and sort of depth, it is quite a lot thinner as well. So this is a proper Ultrabook. So what do you get for your money with this Ultrabook? You get the usual Razer solid aluminium construction, so a nice heft to it. Ports are quite limited on this model, being an Ultrabook, but we've got a USB-C and a USB 3.1 port, along with a headset jack, followed on the other side by another USB 3.1 and a Thunderbolt 3 port. So not a vast selection of ports, but a useful selection. It's not like where you have a MacBook with just 4 Thunderbolt 3s. They've given you a selection of two USB-C, one of which is a Thunderbolt, and 2 USB 3.1, which I find is a good selection because how often do you need plug in a mouse or an external keyboard or whatever, and you don't need a dongle to do that with this Ultrabook. So that is ideal. There's no lit Razer Blade logo on this model. It's just slightly embossed, which gives it a much more professional look in the workplace. So much better looking from Razer. I actually prefer this style than I do for the old Razer Blade 15 and Razer Blade Pro. We've also got the usual Razer Blade status light. You can see we're currently asleep, so it's flashing white. It will flash green when it's running but the screen's not on, and it will give you a warning indication when you're running out of battery as well. On the bottom, very basic, 2 fan intakes, fan exhaust, and some nice long feet strips. Now the advantage of this is it does sit nicely on your desk and it is nice and solid on your desk. It's not like when you have a laptop with 4 little feet and they slip around everywhere. This is nice and firm and sturdy on your desk. And then lastly, tiny little cutout here so that you can one hand lift the lid, and that's a nice feature. Now on opening the laptop you can see straight away Windows Hello. Go, logging myself in. So Windows Hello facial recognition, again a very nice feature. Most of the premium Razer blades come with this. The base model doesn't, but the Pro and the Advanced do, and this Razer Blade Stealth does. Once you've had this on a laptop, it's really difficult to go back to a laptop that doesn't have the facial recognition because it's so simple. Just open the lid, log straight on in. So let's have a quick run through of the specs of this laptop. You can't really configure much other than the displays when you're buying them from Razer, so the specs are all pretty much the same other than the screen. This model that we've got here has got a 10th gen Core i7 1065G7 quad-core processor. I wish Intel would make better naming schemes for the CPUs. That's a 15 watt i7 quad-core with hyper-threading from Intel. It's the current 10th gen, and as I say, this can go up to 25 watts in the gaming mode, sort of sustained. It's got an NVIDIA GTX 1650 Ti Max Q GPU, as well as the onboard Iris Plus graphics. Obviously Optimus for switching of the graphics cards, which gives you the slightly longer battery life other than the dedicated graphics card. Now on this model we've got the 120 Hz 13.3 inch 1080p low power display. It comes with 16 GB of DDR4 high-speed RAM, 512 GB M.2 PCIe SSD. There's just one M.2 slot that is upgradable. We've also got the Intel Wireless AX201, which is your Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1 card. We have a 53.1 watt-hour battery, which gives us the reasonable battery life. And as I've said, when we added the ports, we've got the USB 3.1 Gen 2 on each side. So that's just your USB 3 ports on each side. And then we've got the Thunderbolt 3 port on one side and USB-C on the other. Now the one nice thing that they've done is by having one USB-C on either side and one USB on either side, is it means we can charge from either side of the laptop. So as you can see, I've got the charger plugged in on the right. And also you can have your mouse plugged in on either side or your external hard drive plugged in on either side. It gives you a few more options. There's nothing worse than having all the ports on one side and having to try and drag your cables around when you're using the laptop. So although we haven't got a lot of ports with this machine, it's nice that they're spread between both sides of the laptop. We've got the usual Razer Blade chiclet keyboard with the RGB backlight, but along with the Razer Blade base, the Razer Blade Stealth is a single colour keyboard. Obviously the Razer Blade Advance and the Razer Blade Pro have the per key keyboard, which a lot of people do like. This model, like the Razer Blade 15 base model, is just a single colour which you can change through the Synapse software. Now in Europe, where we currently are shooting, the advantage of that is the single zone keyboards actually have the secondary functions backlit. The Razer Blade Advance in the whole of Europe for some reason only lights up the primary characters. This is a real pain, unfortunately, living in the UK. If I'm using a Razer Blade Advance or a Razer Blade Pro, I can't see all my function and media keys or where my question mark, the forward slash key is. With the Stealth and the actual base model, where it is single zone, the entire keyboard is lit up. That is quite handy. So you're giving up on one hand, you're giving up the per key, but on the other hand you're getting the fully lit keyboard. If you are in America, this doesn't apply to you at all because even the advanced model has all the secondary functions backlit. I don't know why we're second-class citizens in Europe, but Razer clearly don't like us. Now with the 2020 model that we've got here, you'll notice that the layout has changed from the 2019 base and Stealth and Pro. They have changed the cursor keys now finally. Gone are the days where you have the cursor keys going up onto the shift row. Now on the Razer Blade 15 base model, it isn't as big an issue having that layout because you had a longer shift key in the first place. But on my previous 2019 Razer Blade Stealth, you had such a tiny right shift key, and I didn't realise how much I used the right shift key until I used that laptop, and I don't know how many times I misclicked the up arrow instead of the shift or the question mark and moved my cursor up when I'm typing and deleted a load of text. This year they've fixed this problem by having the decent dedicated cursor keys where they should be, and that is a massive improvement on the Stealth. As I say, on the 15 and the 17 it doesn't matter so much, but on the Stealth it is really noticeable, and that's a lovely change. And the other difference between the Stealth keyboard and the 15 and the 17th keyboard is you actually get a power button is in the top right hand corner. It's actually part of the keyboard, whereas the Razer Blade 15 you've obviously got that power button in the speaker grill. So this is actually, I actually prefer this feature because I do find the Razer Blade 15 button is it's difficult to press where it's actually in the speakers. This one here is nice and easy, and even if you accidentally hit it when you're working, it doesn't shut the computer off. It takes a firm press to actually to be used. Next we've got the usual Razer Blade Smooth Microsoft Precision Touchpad. For the size of the 13 inch, it's a really generous sized touchpad, and I think it's actually even bigger than the previous M15R3 review touchpad that we had. So on a 13 inch Ultrabook, this is a really lovely touchpad. The only touchpad I've used better than this is a MacBook Pro touchpad. So for a Windows machine, this is fantastic. You have all your finger gestures with the Microsoft Precision. It glides nice and smoothly, and it's very responsive. You can get by quite easily using the touchpad. Most Windows laptops I end up reaching for a mouse because I can't stand them, but this, fantastic. You have upward firing speakers, and they do actually sound really good. I'll put a clip of music in here in a second. But for a 13.3 inch Windows laptop, these are probably some of the best speakers I've actually come across. Okay, so we're going to do a quick sound test of these sort of quad speakers in this 13.3 inch laptop. They are Dolby tuned, so you have your Dolby profiles, like the Dolby Atmos profiles that you have on a lot of laptops these days. I'm just going to play a bit of royalty-free music here from YouTube so that you can hear the sound. This is at 40% volume on the laptop. So you can hear, like, compared to my voice, getting good volume, decent sound quality, good highs, a little bit of bass, not a lot, but it's definitely there, which is good for a 13.3 inch laptop. Just pop the volume up a little bit so you can hear. This is at 60%. That's really impressive for a 13.3 inch laptop, especially a Windows laptop. Obviously your MacBook Pros are better than this, but I don't think I've heard any better Windows laptops lately. So thumbs up on the speakers. Now, moving up to the screen. One of the big features from this year's model, over the 2019 and the late 2019, we've now got an option for a 120Hz 13.3 inch 1080p display. You've still got the 4K option if you want a sort of glossy touch screen with a higher DPI, but most people that buy this, I can imagine that they're going to be looking at this 120Hz screen. Now I think a 1080p on a 13.3 inch panel is a perfect pixel density anyway. I don't think you really need to be going much higher than this. I run it at 100% sort of DPI and everything's nice and small and crisp and perfect when I want to fit quite a lot on this screen. And then you're not suffering from any Windows high DPI problems for some of the software. Still not perfect out there. It is 120Hz now. This is something that I've been waiting for so long, a 13.3 inch laptop with a 120Hz panel. It isn't as fast as the 144Hz on the Blade 15 that we've recently had in, and it's definitely not going to be as fast as the 240Hz or 300Hz gaming laptops that are out there. But in all honesty, you're not going to be driving games at 120, 144Hz on this laptop. So just the fact that it is much smoother than the previous 60Hz display is a bonus enough for me using this laptop day in and day out. But with regards to the screen, it's very similar, the quality, to last year's 60Hz 1080p low power panel display. So the colours, they're quite vibrant, they're accurate, and they really have a nice pop for a matte display. It's very clear and crisp, and it also gets very bright. It's a 400 nit display, and unfortunately I don't have a way of actually testing that, but I can tell you that it feels much brighter than the 400 nit display we had on our Lenovo ThinkPad T14 Ryzen edition. When I put them side by side, this panel is much brighter and is much nicer to actually use. So I think that is pretty much it for the actual look and feel of this laptop. It is a very nice laptop to use. Now when we're talking about the performance of this laptop in a second, what we need to bear in mind is this is a 13.3 inch Ultrabook. Now as I said at the beginning of the video, everybody will say to you, well, why not buy an Asus G14 with a Ryzen processor? Now the Ryzen processor is an absolutely fantastic processor, and if that is all you are bothered about, the graphics and the processor performance, then yes, buy the Asus G14. If you're just going to be gaming on this machine, then the G14 is 1,000 times better than this machine. But then if you're just going to be gaming on a machine, I could find other better gaming laptops than the G14. But we're looking at this laptop from what it really is, which is a 13.3 inch Ultrabook. You saw the size a minute ago versus the 15 inch. This is a really tiny laptop. This is a laptop you can pick up with one hand, throw in a bag, take with you on site to do some work, or take to the library and do some work, and then fire up a game when you've finished. So the gaming performance is pretty solid on this machine. and we're going to put some benchmarks in a little while in the performance section. But that's not the main reason you're going to be buying this. You'll be buying this for, using this for a few hours at a time in an office, or on site or in a library, and then kicking back and using it to watch a video or play a game in the evening. So looking at the Synapse software that we get with this laptop, as you do get with all Razer blades, what we can see here is, as usual, you can customize it for the lighting, the macros, and all the other effects that you might want to put on the laptop. But what's more important for us at the moment is the performance section. You can see I'm on battery at the moment, so some of my items are greyed out. But if I put it onto the plugged in section, you can see we have an option of balanced, battery saver, and gaming profiles. Now for each of these profiles, it adjusts the CPU power accordingly to get the most out of this notebook. The default is balanced, and on balanced, with this ultrabook CPU, the 15 watt Core i7, you're going to get the actual performance locked to 15 watts. So fire up a game or a benchmark, or something heavy like Cinebench. What will happen is that CPU will boost up to about 25 watts for a few seconds, and then it will drop back down to 15 watts. And it will sit nicely there all day at 15 watts, and the laptop stays nice and cool and quiet. The battery saver, this profile, I would very rarely use this. It will save you a bit of battery, but it locks you at 8 watts. So again, a very, very quiet machine, but you're not going to be doing a lot at that 8 watts. If you're just doing office work, then you could use it. But if you're doing anything that needs a bit of power, I would definitely recommend just rather staying balanced. And then lastly, we have our gaming profile. Now the gaming profile lets this CPU run at a decent wattage for this 15 watt CPU. It'll shoot right up into the sort of 40 watts initially, boosting right up into the sort of late 3 gigahertz. Run that for a few seconds, and then the power limit will kick in at 25 watts, and it will sit all day at 25 watts on this laptop. The noise and the fans will kick up, but it's quite solid at 25 watts, and if you are gaming, you can get quite a solid experience gaming at the 25 watts that this will give you. From within this section as well, what you can do, which is quite useful, is they actually change the screen refresh rate. It defaults to 120 Hz that I have with this actual 120 Hz panel, but we can drop it back to 60 Hz. So if you do wish to try and maximise battery life with this laptop, pop it on 60 Hz, pop it on battery saver, turn off the backlight, and you're probably looking at about 5 to 6 hours of light load on this laptop. Nowhere near as long lasting as the previous 2019 with the MX250 laptop, but this is a much more powerful laptop. It's got a GTX 1650 Ti Max-Q in it. Now you'll find that 1650 Ti Max-Q will boost to 35 watt, which is what this Max-Q allows, and that gives you pretty solid frame rates for most games on sort of medium settings, 1080p. We are going to do a follow-up video with some gaming performance of this laptop, because obviously it isn't a dedicated gaming laptop, so I'm thinking that people will probably be interested to see what games can play and at what settings. So we will be doing a follow-up video in the next few days with that information for you. So we're going to be running just a couple of performance benchmarks on this laptop, so you can see the sort of power that you have in this tiny little Ultrabook. Just running through Time Spy here. We're going to be popping up the results in a second, but you can see straight away by looking at the MSI overlay that the laptop does run pretty cool and quiet. Now we're in gaming mode, and the GPU is running at a solid 35 watts, which is what this Max-Q graphics card runs at. This isn't a particularly demanding scene, so we're only getting about 8 watts on the actual processor, but you can see we're still running at 3.9 gigahertz. So we're pretty much maxing out this 15 watt i7 chip. Right, so just listening to the actual fans with my phone's decibel meter. When I stop talking now, we'll be able to see sort of the decibels it's running at. So I'm going to go silent for a second. So you can see there we're getting an actual 38 decibel reading, which is quite quiet. Now it does get louder than that. Basically we're running on quite a low CPU point on this benchmark. When it does get to a heavy CPU and GPU section in a little while, it will get up to about 46 decibels at its max. So again, it's still quieter than a Razer Blade 15, but it does still get quite noisy for a gaming laptop. If you want to keep it quiet, so keep it at the sort of the 38 decibel mode, then just leave it in balanced. That caps the CPU at 15 watts, and the fan never really cranks up to its maximum. So what about the power supply? You're going to be taking this laptop with you. The one thing that I disliked about this laptop in comparison to my old 2019 Razer Blade, the 2019 had a tiny little 65 watt compact PSU. Now this one has got a 100 watt USB-C PSU, but it's really quite chunky, and it certainly sort of defeats a lot of this portability aspect from this laptop. This is so nice and easy to throw in a bag and cart around with you, and then you've got to carry this quite chunky, heavy laptop. Now again, it's nothing like a Razer Blade Pro 240 or 230 watt power adapter, but for a Ultrabook, that's a pretty big power adapter. And not only is the power adapter big, but the actual cable itself to the USB-C port is braided and really thick and chunky. And if you've ever used USB-C power adapters, you know that normally they're quite small and they've got quite thin cables, so you can just wrap them up and throw them in the bag. You won't be doing that with this. If you do wish to put in a lower wattage, like a 65 watt USB-C adapter that you might have hanging around, the laptop will power and work fine, but what you will find is the CPU is capped at the 15 watts like it is on the balanced profile, so you won't be able to get that solid 25 watt. If you want that solid 25 watt, you're going to have to use the included 100 watt power adapter that Razer give you. So in conclusion, if you want an Ultrabook that will handle all of your workflow from video editing to Unity to word processing to coding, with some gaming on the side, then this is more the machine for you. It's incredibly thin and light. You can easily throw it in a backpack. It's a USB-C charger, so you can plug in your spare 65 watt USB, or if you don't want to bring the bundled adapter with you, because that is big. But this little machine, it will last you for a few hours on the go as well, so it's a good dedicated little machine you can take with you. And it has a decent screen and speakers, which is a lot to be said for a decent Ultrabook. There isn't many decent Ultrabooks out there with decent screens, speakers and keyboard all in one nice solid package. That also gives you decent power as well. This is that laptop. Now, if I'm going to be comparing between this and the Razer Blade Base 15 that we've recently reviewed, this is the machine I would be buying if I want to be on the go, coding, watching Netflix, doing a little bit of work, photo editing, out on the go. That's the machine I would be buying, this Razer Blade Stealth. Pop up a few games afterwards, it will play Call of Duty Modern Warfare, it will play your Dotas, all your sort of your easy to play esports titles. But it won't play them at really high frames per second, but you can get away with it whilst you're out in a hotel or out in a library or in your bedroom. That is what this laptop is for. If you want a dedicated gaming machine, buy a dedicated gaming machine. But if you want an all-round laptop, that is what this Razer Blade Stealth is aimed at. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have any questions or any comments, please drop them in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you. I'm going to be doing some follow-up reviews in the next couple of days with some gaming performance and some tweaking guides to get the most out of this little Razer Blade Stealth. And we do have some more laptops coming in. We have the new XPS 9310 and the new 2-in-1 XPS coming in shortly soon as well. So please hit subscribe and notifications, and those videos will be coming up shortly. Thank you for watching.